Go, Fritz.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
The Bears. The Bears.
I am the great Cornholio.
We'll see what happens.
Playoffs?
See, Sean McDonough, Jay Billis. Goats!
Can you play a song? Something cool. Put my mic on!
I'm calling both games.
Oh, baby!
Are you serious? Goes down the field for Smith. Oh, he got it!
Seattle. We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
This region will this segment will be taking a look at the Western region in the NCAA Men's Division I basketball tournament, otherwise known as March Madness. So the Western region is where we find the number 1 overall seed Gonzaga, as I mentioned for the break. Gonzaga with a 26-3 record, obviously one of the favorites to win it all this spring. But I look at them and obviously they're going to beat 16th seed Georgia State. If that upset happens, that'd be great. And I'm probably going to say that for each 1/16 matchup, because for those of you that aren't too familiar with basketball, all time in the NCAA tournament, the 1 versus 16 seed, the record for 1 seeds is 153-1. Only 1 16 seed has ever beaten a 1 seed, and that was 4 years ago today when UMBC shocked the entire world and beat Virginia. I'll never forget that game. That was one of the craziest games ever. I remember sitting there watching that, and I thought, there's no way this is happening. You truly were watching history, because that had never happened before. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm watching this. So if Gonzaga loses to Georgia State, that'd be hilarious. That'd be that'd still be crazy, even though it's happened once. It's happened once out of 154 times, right? So if it happens again, that still would be pretty shocking. So anyway, Gonzaga's probably going to win that game, you'd probably hope. And I look at that at the 8-9 matchup in the West bracket between Boise State and Memphis. And I think if Boise State is one of those teams that, in order for them to have success, they have to be matched up with the right team. And playing out in the Mountain West, there are a lot of teams that play to the same style as Boise State. And even there are even times where the Broncos have kind of forced teams to play to their style, very similar to how Virginia is. Low scoring, slow down game. That's kind of how Boise State is. They don't score too much, but their defense is good. That's the difference between them and Iowa State, is that sure, they don't score score a lot, but their defense backs it up. You take a look at their games in Mountain West Conference play. They played San Diego State one game, and the final score was like 46-45. So they didn't score much, but again, their defense backs that up. So again, they play other Mountain West teams such as Wyoming, San Diego State, teams to that extent. So Boise State is a team that I don't count out. I don't say they're definitely going to lose. But against a Memphis team that, and Memphis as a 9 seed, I mean, that's going to be a tough game for either team. For both teams, it's going to be a difficult game. I don't think there's any clear favorite in that one. I think you could obviously make a case for both teams. But I look at Memphis as a team that I think could beat Boise State. I really do. Memphis, for sure, they started off the season pretty good, and then they just hit a rut. They just, again, similar to Iowa State, they fell off the face of the earth for a little bit. I think they took some time. They found themselves a little bit. They figured things out, and they made a run in the American Athletic Conference tournament. Played Houston in the final, and they did lose that one, but it was good to see them kind of figure things out and start winning some games and really go back to the way they were, to the way they looked like. Go back to the team that everybody thought they were going to be earlier in the season. So I like Memphis in that game over Boise State, but again, don't count out Boise State either. They are a team that could give Memphis a good fight. Moving one matchup down, Uconn and New Mexico State, the classic 5-12 matchup. The 5-12 matchup is infamous for upsets. So no matter who's at the 12th seed, doesn't matter if it's New Mexico State or Vermont or whoever it is, that 12th seed is always coming into that game saying, "Hey, look at all those other 12 seeds that won this game. We can do it too." And Uconn is a team that they made it to the Big East tournament semi lost to Villanova. Uconn was a team that was in the top 25 for most of the season. And, I think Uconn, but a 12th-seeded New Mexico State team, I don't know. For other than Indiana, which we'll get to later on tonight, New Mexico State I think they're going to give UConn a good run for their money as well. That's a toss-up game for me. I could see either team winning that one. And they'll face the winner of Arkansas and Vermont. Vermont has dominated the American East. What is that conference? I know it's AEC. I think it's American Eastern. I don't know, something like that, or Atlantic Eastern. So I don't know. It's a small conference, so my bad for not being able to remember the name of that conference off the top of my head right now. Anyway, the point is they dominate that conference. It's usually between them and UMBC every year. Vermont wins it, gets the automatic bid. They'll play Arkansas. And honestly, I know when I was filling out my bracket, I kind of, quickly selected Arkansas to win that game. But once again, that's another game that could come down to the wire, as many games do in March Madness. But Arkansas is a team, it depends on which team's going to show up, right? That game is tomorrow. And it's going to come down to which team wants to show up tomorrow for Arkansas, right? There are times where Arkansas played a great game. I believe they beat Auburn, right, at one point. I can't remember which team it was in the SEC, but they definitely had a few upsets. They were in the top 25 for a few weeks, so they earned their right to be in the tournament. Fair to say. But there were other times where they kind of fell on their face a little bit, and I think it all comes down to which Arkansas team is going to show up tomorrow against Vermont. But I like Arkansas winning that one and making it to the second round. One game down, which is gonna depend on which team wins the play-in game, but it's gonna be between 6-seeded Alabama and the winner of Rutgers Notre Dame, which that game tips off tonight at about 9:00 Eastern time. I personally like Rutgers or Notre Dame, the winner of that game. I think Rutgers is gonna win. I think Rutgers has plenty of talented pieces such as Ron Harper Jr., Paul Mulcahy, Geo Baker. What's the other guy's name? Can't remember it off the top of my head. What's his name? Caleb McConnell. That's it. They got a really good team there. They just caught some tough breaks this season that led them to an 18-13 record. But I like their chances against Alabama. Alabama is another team very similar to Arkansas, where when they put it all together, they're a great team, without a doubt. But if it's not their day, it's gonna be ugly, and it could get ugly. And Alabama is that team. Last year, in the second round against Maryland, it felt like they hit 3,000 3-pointers. And at that point, what do you do, right? And that's just kind of how they operate. They're a sharpshooting team, but there's that saying in college basketball: when you live by the three, you die by the three. And when the threes aren't falling, they're not falling. So very similar to what I said about Arkansas. It depends on what team it shows up for Alabama on Friday against Rutgers or Notre Dame. And whether it's Rutgers or Notre Dame, doesn't matter. Either team has a fair shot at beating Alabama. And I think Rutgers is going to win tonight, and I think Rutgers has a very good chance to beat Alabama. I think that could be one of the upsets we see. Moving one matchup down, Texas Tech, Montana State. I don't know what to say about Montana State. I got Texas Tech winning that one. But then the bottom two games of this region, you got 7th-seeded Michigan State and 10th-seeded Davidson. That's going to be a tough one. That's a tough one for me to pick. I just picked Michigan State because Michigan State is a team that no matter what seed they are, Tom Izzo coaches them up real good in March. When March comes around, they know how to win close games, just win games in general. They know that Tom Izzo just knows what to do. He just knows how to coach his teams up real well, and take his team far. So we'll see if they can get over the hump against Davidson in that one. Davidson, again, very Very good team. They were top 25 at one point. They were, I believe, 21-3 at one point, 21-0, something like that. They had a really good record, and they kind of teetered off a little bit, and wound up losing to Richmond in the Atlantic 10 championship game. But again, so that's gonna be a tough game, right? I think you can make a case for either team in that game. But again, when it comes to March, I don't remember the last time Michigan State. Well, last year, of course, they had the first 4 game against UCLA. They lost. But other than that, I can't recall when Michigan State lost in the first round. Can't recall it because it doesn't happen all that often. And so I think Michigan State, again, as a 7 seed, they're a team that who knows? They could win. They could go to the Sweet 16. They could go to the Elite 8. They could go to the Final 4. You never know. Michigan State is just a team that, again, no matter what seed they are, you can never count them out. And then, of course, you have Duke, which I don't think anybody's rooting for other than, obviously Duke fans, which, I mean, let's be honest, who likes Duke? They're the 2nd seed. They'll most likely beat 15th seed Cal State Fullerton. So looking at possible second-round matchups, Memphis and Gonzaga, that could be a close game. I think Memphis could give Gonzaga a good run for the money, but I think Gonzaga wins both those first and second round. I think Gonzaga makes it to the Sweet 16. I want to get back to the bottom of this bracket though, because I want to talk about Michigan State Duke, because that's who I have in the second round. And again, Michigan State Duke, like you take a look at Duke, and sure, they're the 2nd seed. They boast a 28-6 record. They were the runner-ups in the ACC. They went to the ACC title game, all that good stuff, right? They've got Paolo Banchero. They've got names. Like I know that they have. If you show me his, I can't remember his name. My bad. But names are terrible, right? I'll be 1 minute, I'll know the name, think, okay, I got the name, and then I get on air and I'm like, yeah, I don't know who that guy is. But they have plenty of great All-American type of players, obviously, as they're the 2nd seed in this region. But their main problem has been on the defensive end, and the fact that you take Paolo Banchero, and it seems like Duke has had trouble finding where to put him on defense. Who do you match him up against? Sure, Banchero has the size, right? But does he have enough size to play to match up against a beefy forward, a big body forward? Okay, maybe not. But and sure, he's got enough speed to bring the ball up the court a few times, run some plays and stuff like that. But again, you look at defense, does he have enough speed to match up with a guard? And that's the issue. There's kind of this awkward in-between zone for Paolo Banchero and other guys as well. There have been issues on defense for Duke. And, again, they had that terrible game against Carolina in Coach K's last game in Cameron Indoor. Personally, I thought that was hilarious that, it was hyped up all week long and then Carolina comes to town and blows them out. I thought it was hilarious to see all the crying Duke kids and see Coach K get bitter afterward telling the fans to shut up. I thought that was pretty funny. But then again, you take that a step further into the ACC tournament, and their first game, I believe it was their first game against Syracuse, they struggled. Syracuse, which was a pretty good team, in terms of they were middle of the pack. Obviously, they didn't make the tournament, but they were one of the better middle of the pack teams. Where if Syracuse had won a few games, they could have gotten into the big dance. If they made a run in the ACC tournament. So, but bottom line is, if you're Duke and you're the, I believe they were the number 1 team in the ACC tournament. You should be taking care of 10th seeded Syracuse pretty easily. I believe Syracuse was a 10 or 9. So, they let Syracuse hang around for most of the game. It was a back and forth game for the majority of the game, and then Duke pulls away late. Okay, so you win that game. You take the next game against Miami. I believe they only won that game by about 4 points. That was a close game against a Miami team that we take a look at the bracket. Oh, they were a 10th seed. All right. So you barely escaped that one. So let's take, how do they do in the next round? Well, that was when they played Virginia Tech. I believe they played Syracuse, Miami, and Virginia Tech. I'm fairly certain that's what happened. I don't think they played anybody else. Yeah, they played Virginia Tech in the ACC Championship, and they lost that game too. And Virginia Tech was a team that they've been inconsistent this year. They beat some good teams, but they also lost some games where you were scratching your head a little bit. We take a look at the bracket. Virginia Tech was an 11th seed. So if they're, and I understand those teams are in their conference, but Duke, that was a common issue with Duke, was when it mattered and it came down to clutch, to crunch time, I should say, they had issues coming up clutch. And against Michigan State, a team that they're going to go in and say, hey, let's be the team. Let's be the team to send Coach K home. Let's be the team to end Coach K's farewell tour. I could very well see Michigan State, giving Duke everything they can handle and possibly beating Duke. That is going to be a matchup that I would love to see if Michigan State and Duke both win their first round games. That's going to be a game that I would love to see because I think you could obviously make the case for Duke winning, but I think Michigan State's going to be right there as a team that could win that game as well. Elsewhere in the bracket, there aren't too many teams I have my eye on to make a deep run. I think Texas Tech has a chance to make a run. I think they'll make a Sweet 16 run and possibly make it into the Elite Eight. And then obviously I think Gonzaga is going to make the Elite Eight and possibly the Final Four.
Shut up and sit down.